Okay, if you are a coach, influencer, business owner, or any kind of course creator, please raise your hand if you have ever had the fear, I'm not expert enough. In fact, just give me a heart right there if you have ever had this come up for you. Chances are you have. And in today's episode, we are talking about imposter syndrome. That's exactly what it is, imposter syndrome, and the 3 things that you can do to combat it. If we haven't met before, my name is Jen Casey. I'm a business strategy and NLP coach, and I work with online coaches who want to turn their social media into sales. And I'm really excited because today we have an amazing question from Amanda.
Hey Jen Casey, here's my question for you. When you're stuck in the I'm not good enough, who am I to be an expert, what's the quickest way to get yourself back on track and feeling positive and empowered about your journey?
Amanda, thank you so much for submitting such an awesome question. Now, if you were just sitting listening to that and you're like, oh my God, I have those exact same thoughts. How did she know? She's in my head. Just know that you are not alone. You're not alone. This comes up for all of us at some point or another. And this is something called imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has this internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Been there, right? If this comes up for you, the first thing you want to do is acknowledge it. I know, pretty simple, but acknowledge it. And I think this is so important because in today's world of social media, we're seeing everyone's highlight reels and all of these Instagram quotes about be positive and stay positive. And I think it's almost gone a little bit too far to the point where some of us don't want to feel negative emotion anymore. We're like, oh, no. Gotta be positive, gotta stay positive. Don't want to manifest the wrong thing, so I gotta push down anything that doesn't feel good and swat away any negative emotion so that I can just keep focusing on the positive thing. But when we do that, we don't allow ourselves to actually work through and process the things that are coming up for us. They're coming up for a reason. Your unconscious mind is like, hey, now's the time to pay attention to this and work through this thing that happened when you were 5 that you still haven't dealt with. So sometimes we have to be able to process those things in order to release them. Otherwise, they just kind of keep coming back, right? So it's really important that we acknowledge it. And one thing that I do that's been really powerful is I kind of take a step back when I see or feel those things come up, those imposter syndrome thoughts, and I look at it as an objective viewer. And I just kind of go, that's really interesting that that's coming up for me today. I wonder what that's about. I wonder why that's coming up. And when I do that, what I typically notice is those thoughts usually, not always, but usually come up when I'm about to stretch into something new, when I'm about to do something that I've never done before or put myself into a position that feels a little scary. Like maybe I'm gonna go to a big networking event where I'm gonna meet people who I really admire from social media, or maybe I'm gonna go and speak on stage, or it could really just be anything that I've never done before. Because our unconscious mind, in an effort to protect us, doesn't like the unknown. It doesn't like empty space. And so it starts to fill in the gaps. And when we are thinking in default, right, when we're not in control with a clear intention about what we want to manifest, we start to, or unconscious mind rather, starts to fill it in with all the negative what ifs. So all of a sudden you're excited about going to this networking party and now you're thinking about how everyone's gonna reject you, like that time when you were in 3rd grade and people are gonna be mean to you and no one wants to be your friend. And we're not even totally conscious that we're doing this, but it starts to kind of play in the background and all of a sudden we're getting this anxiety about going and doing this new thing. And so instead here, what you want to do is become really intentional about visualizing your desired outcome, right? Being really clear about what you want to create. And you can do all of that just by first acknowledging what is happening for you when those things are coming up. The second thing we want to do is challenge it. When those beliefs start coming in of I'm not good enough, who's going to read my content, I'm not expert enough, according to whom? Who says you're not expert enough? What makes someone an expert? Do they have to have 40 years plus of experience? Did they need to graduate top of their class in order to be a credible content contributor in the online space? No, of course not. You get so much value and you take tons of advice from people who don't have any of those qualifications. So no, you don't need any of those things to be an expert. You just need to start showing up and sharing your voice. Seriously though, we can become our own worst enemies or our greatest cheerleaders with our thinking. And when we get into those negative patterned thoughts, we start to create what's called internal representations. So it's not just that you're thinking a thought. With every thought that you think, you're creating an image, some kind of picture. Like we think in pictures and movies. And that's amplifying the emotion of negativity, kind of adding that momentum, making you feel worse and worse. And so we've got to break that pattern. We've got to get out of that cycle. A belief is simply a thought on repetition that you have accepted as your own reality. I'll say that again. A belief is a thought on repetition that you have accepted as your reality. A few years ago, I was reading The Voice of Knowledge by Don Miguel Ruiz, and he said, if you're the one that's listening, who's doing the talking? And I remember reading that, getting chills all over my body. I was like, if I'm the one that's listening, who's doing the talking? And that was the first time in my life that I had really fully reached this new level of understanding that the thoughts, the negative things that I had been thinking were not mine. They did not come from me. It was revolutionary because in that moment, I started to actually question all of the things that I had been saying to myself that wasn't serving me, that didn't feel in alignment with my inner being. And that is your built-in guidance system. And if you listen to any Abraham Hicks, they talk about the emotional guidance scale. And essentially, you know when you are either focused on things that you don't want because you don't feel good when you think about them and focus on them, or you're focused on things that you do want and then you feel good and you're like, look at me manifesting all these amazing things. And that brings us perfectly into number 3, realign your focus. When the belief creeps in, I'm not expert enough, who am I to be doing this? Ask yourself, is it true? And maybe you're like, yeah, it's kind of true. Is it 100% true? Is it a NASA fact? No, right? Then you want to ask yourself, do I want this to be true? Because we create our own realities. And I don't care what school of thought you are coming from. If you look at the law of attraction and manifestation, they're going to talk about what you focus on expands. Thoughts become things. If you look at personal development world, they're going to say destination fixation. If you're riding a bike and you're saying, don't hit the curb, don't hit the curb, don't hit the curb, where's the bike going? Into the curb. And within psychology, you can look at the self-fulfilling prophecy. And this essentially says that whatever you believe to be true about yourself is going to inform your behaviors and actions and ultimately give you a very similar end result to what you believe to be true about yourself, right? So regardless of school of thought, it all kind of points back to the exact same thing, that we create our own realities, that we determine what we are able to accomplish. So if it's not true that you're not expert enough or whatever that belief might be, what do you want your truth to be? Because the truth here is that you get to create your own reality. So get excited because anything, truly anything, is possible. If you love this video, make sure to give it a heart and tag a friend below who needs to hear this today. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!